All right, instead of preparing a formal video on this topic, I figured let's go ahead and do improv on this just because I feel like the idea needs to go out. And I'll do a formal video later. So this is me going raw. And I want to talk about monthly active users. It's a metric used in business, particularly live service games like Destiny 2, a lot of Ubisoft games for Assassin's Creed or live service games. The notion behind live service games is that you would create a platform in which you would create the world, you'd create these quests, whatever, you create the features of it, and then you would update it incrementally. So it's a purely online experience, and you would throw in microtransactions or anything else to keep it going because you can't just have something that's perpetually online and not have the means to fund it. And so you have these companies which try to create more content. You could classify MMO games as a live service game, but it still sits as a different genre because typically live MMOs are massive multiplayer online games versus games that are in a hub, meaning there's a limited amount of players in an area and you go into instances. Basically, it's not a large open world. That's what differentiates your typical live service game from an MMO game. Now, going back to monthly active users, that metric is used so that means that it means that every month they track how many players are participating in the system, and this creates the confidence to estimate how much revenue, how much money you're making, and the sales that you can make. It's like saying we can estimate like 10,000 people walking into this grocery store every week or every month. That would be a way to track monthly active users. Now, I've noticed that the metric gets really aggressive. The If you ever have watched the Dice a keynote or the panel where a high-ranking member of Bungie, spoke about how they operate Destiny 2 as a live service game using monthly active users to track their money making, their progress, and development. One of the big problems with monthly active users is that beyond that mention of using the metric, eventually leveraging the metric will make you go into the realm of tracking velocity. What I mean by that is the speed in which you gain that many people in a month. And when you do that, that means you need to have, like, for you to keep growing or sustaining your estimated projected number of revenue and people on board of your live service platform, you need to create enough content to keep people coming back. And the growth of that, yeah, that's how you track velocity of the increase and decrease of that amount of users over time. The only thing that actually works with the monthly active user system is content creation and social media creation. Now, I'll get to that in a second. The problem with monthly active users for platforms that are company and not user oriented content creation is the fact that you have to keep creating new content as a company in order to support the velocity of using monthly active users. And that is a big challenge because when you rely on the company to create content all the time, there are going to be points where users don't care. Now, when in a healthcare capacity, if let's say, for instance, a vlogger website, during, let's say, COVID, everyone's going to look for COVID articles. So vloggers, health vlogger websites that talk about COVID, they're going to shoot up in popularity. And you would think in confidence that the monthly active users for COVID, like that would potentially sustain the company for a while. But eventually, when you create new content that doesn't deal with COVID, not everyone's really going to care. And so you have to make your content relevant to where the demographic cares. But here's the challenge: the content you create is not always in the hands of of the people that know or care to create content and try it, because within companies there is red tape. There's going to be directors, there's going to be brand police that would guide the pathway of how content would be expressed. And that limits your ability to pivot. And so when it comes to the business model of content creation, in order to maintain monthly active users, it's very difficult. It's not impossible, but it's so difficult. Now, we're going to go back to the reference of Destiny 2 as a game that has used monthly active users as a live service. Now, when that happens, over time, Destiny 2 staff made assumptions on what worked and what they felt players wanted to experience. And they created content for a while, and a chunk of it didn't land. And for all the times that the content didn't land for players, they lost monthly active users. And you could imagine for video games how long it takes to develop content and how long it takes before you can try to pivot. Let's say, for instance, from a software development standpoint, you already have a lot of things lined up and needs to be executed over time. And so if people don't resonate with content, it's hard for your production pipeline to shift. Like by the time you shift all your production, all those high-end assets, you're already losing users by the thousands, 100,000s, whichever have you. And so by the time you do pivot, you've already lost so much that you potentially will have a budget cut and lay people off. Now, let's go into content creation in the hands of users. We have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have Facebook, YouTube. The reason why monthly active users works in that realm is because the content creation and the trend chasing is in the hands of the users. So when it comes to the overhead of maintaining content output, it is more so judged by the hands of people who are incentivized to create content on your platform. That's why TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are still going to persist for a very long time, because YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, they are not the judges of who gets to put content out there. They are only managing content that may not be of service to their platform or the community at large, but ultimately it's still up to the community what they want to do. Even LinkedIn, with its recent video tab now, they're jumping in further into content creation, letting users dictate the flow and the trend and chase. So the velocity of monthly active users is more like it's possible. It is survivable. So if you do want to chase the metric of monthly active users, you need to recognize the danger of your platform, whether live service, content creation, whether it's in the hand of the company or it's in the hand of users or customers or the content creators themselves. For you to effectively use the velocity, the metrics of monthly active users without concerns of it ever dipping below what your projections will allow revenue-wise, you need to put it in the hands of the users, not in the hands of the company, because here's the consequence, and this is as I was talking about Destiny 2, eventually when you rely on the company to output content in order to create retention and growth under the metric of monthly active users, you're eventually going to run into a wall where the direction you have content-wise, even with all the research, you cannot truly know which way people will care about content. And when they don't, the consequence often, more often than not, is eventual budget cuts or the loss of jobs or just the minimizing of of resource capacity in order to correct the ship later down the line. And with the way the market is right now in 2024, in the middle of 2024, we are in an industry, no matter whether it's gaming, healthcare, whatever, where people are losing their jobs because people are trying to maintain some level of a budget in order to weather the economic storm of just whatever's going to happen to the economy. So that aside, major warning with leveraging monthly active users. I'm not a big fan of it. You could leverage it, but recognize where it is best served because it may look good initially in a number of months or whatever have you, but when people start to get tired of things and they start to recognize how difficult it is for people to care, yeah, you can have wins down the line having to create content for customers, but it's not consistent. And you can imagine without sustainable, consistent revenue under the leveraging monthly active users, you're going to run into dangers of just irregular resource management. So again, if you really want to have really strong monthly active users, definitely put it in the hands of the users, and just know that brand police would, if they're very tight on the integrity of brand, it's going to mitigate your ability to grow. Know where the choke holds are, the choke points. That's about it.